Welcome friends, fiends, and familiars to the Comic Fiends Comic Friends. On this show, I have conversations with friends from all over about comics. In this week's episode, I gab with a friend about comic movie adaptations. We don't really touch on it here, but he narrates creepypasta on his own channel. Welcome to the Comic Fiends Comic Friends. I am the Comic Fiend, and this is my comic friend. We're going to call you Ghostpaw. That's right?
Yeah, that works perfectly fine.
Cool. So, go ahead and introduce yourself, Ghostpaw. How did I meet you? What's the deal? How do we know each other?
We met through a common friend, correct? And we just started talking, hanging out.
Yep. That's how easy it is. Just meeting people. Right?
Yes,
all right.
Sir.
So let's find out. What kind of comics do you read? Now, this can be any kind of, it can be the Marvel TC stuff. It can be manga. It can be web comics. Anything you read, I'd like to know about it.
Well, generally speaking, anything I get my hands on. I'm really partial to Marvel for whatever reason. Like, I've read a plethora of DC comics, but mostly it's been Marvel, specifically Doctor Strange. I've been on a Doctor Strange kick for quite a while. I'm not sure why. He's just, for whatever reason, I relate a lot to him, to his character. But I also read manga. I read a lot of Naruto and whatnot. As far as graphic novels, I've read like Sin City and whatnot. So I kind of just like delve out there. I'm really partial to like horror related comics.
Sweet.
I know they did one for Dead Space that I really enjoyed. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, I haven't actually read that one. I'll have to check that one out. So, okay, cool. It sounds like you have a really broad taste. I appreciate that. I myself believe I'm on that same track. So how did you start reading comics? Like where did you, if you think back as far as you can, like where did you start?
Originally, actually, my mom and my brother's dad, they actually owned it was a card comic book shop / arcade, in this little town not too far from where I live currently. They owned that for about, I want to say, a year and a half. But it didn't do too well. So that's originally where I was introduced into this stuff. But at that time, I wasn't really allowed to read the stuff that they had. For whatever reason, I don't know. I was just young enough to where if I saw the comic, I would just pick it up. I wouldn't actually read it. But I just remember seeing like comics and baseball cards and stuff everywhere. So that's where I was first introduced. And I didn't actually start getting into reading them until I was about, I don't know, say 12 or 13.
Oh, wow. And how old were you at that other point in time? Like 5 or 6?
Yeah, somewhere about there, 4 or 5.
Okay.
I don't know why. It's just fleeting memories of that stuff for that little time period. You know, I remember seeing the racks of comics and the posters and stuff up everywhere, and it was a pretty big place. But it was mostly arcade stuff. So you had the comics in the front and then the arcade in the back and whatnot. So I think I was just more partial to the arcade at that time because it was flashing lights and whatnot.
Well, sure, yeah.
So I didn't actually start reading comics until I was
middle schooler.
7th, 8th grade, and the only reason I started reading comics was because a buddy of mine's father, he had a small little business where he sold comics, like 34, 45 cents, 35, 40 cents a comic. And, I bought some. It was a broad spectrum, mostly the X-Men, some Captain America ones were in there. And dang it, Garfield and stuff. He had a lot of interesting stuff like that.
Like the little collected Garfield books. I like those. I really like those. Yeah, I used to go to the library and check those out.
Yeah.
I think I went through at least 20 years of Garfield before I ran out. But
wow.
something like that. Yeah. It looks so weird if you look at like what Garfield started, like how it looked like when it started. It's just super weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of streamlined itself into what it looks like, today, the last 20 years, I think, or whatever, 15 years. I haven't been reading Garfield in a long time. I haven't read Garfield in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you bought these, sounds like really cheap comics, and then you just started reading those, and then you branched out from there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sort of. I stopped reading comics after a year or two. It's just because I really didn't I didn't hang out with this person anymore, and they kind of stopped selling comics. There was a big stink about it. I guess some of the parents were upset because, well, it was somebody like an older person selling comics to kids, and it wasn't through a legitimate business, so there was just a bunch of mess.
Okay,
I mean, it wasn't
a store, and you're just
no. Well, I mean, he that's what he originally wanted to do, but he just couldn't afford the space. I mean, I don't know all the facts about it, but from what I recollect, they had these huge boxes upon boxes and stuff, and people would come over and they would go through them and buy whatever ones that they wanted. So, but we ended up stopping that, or they ended up stopping that.
I see. That's a new one.
Yeah,
I haven't had that one yet. Neat. Kind of. Well, I mean, you're alive, so it's fine, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we knew him. We went to school with his kids and everything, so it wasn't that weird. We just after school we'd go over, check out what they had, and then we would go from there.
I see. Okay.
But from that point, I stopped for a really long time until I got into high school, and then that's when I started picking up the mangas and stuff, and that's when I was first introduced. I was given the first volume of Naruto when it was first introduced, and I picked up a couple of those, and then I just started reading them kind of like online, passing here and there, because I mean, I would rather have the actual book in my hand, but where we lived and how everything went, books and stuff, they got ruined real easy. We just had a lot of issues with our house. I mean, I had a box full of books that was up in my closet, and they were ruined because of a hole, and it started raining, so
yeah,
just having stuff like that just didn't really last for us. And it's not until now that I can actually start my collection back up. I just haven't. But from that point, I started reading graphic novels, and a good friend of mine, Frankie, he was the one who first introduced me to graphic novels, because at that point I had never heard of anything like that besides mangas and comic books. And I think the first thing he had me read was Sin City, and I just absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah.
And then from there, it just kind of just picked up, but it hasn't been as apt. I haven't been keeping up with it as much. I mean, I've kind of limited myself, and I don't know why. I haven't really read anything since that, honestly. Here and there, I've been picking up comics. When I go and I try to, I picked up quite a selection of Doctor Strange, and I just wish I had them in order from which they came out. But some of them are issues number 4, issues number 12, and whatnot. So, I mean, eventually I'll get there.
Right? Yeah. And does the Doctor Strange interest have anything to do with the movie that just came out? Is that relevant?
It does. It does in a lot of aspects, but there's some things in there that they kind of just they glossed over. And I understand, movie adaptations, they're going to be different. They're going to have their own interpretation of it, and whatnot. But for the most part, they pretty much really hit the nail on the head. The character is just spot on. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch, he comes off, in the beginning as, throughout the movie is, bossy, arrogant. He's kind of like the Tony Stark of, the magic universe. And, having that come back was really great. I just think that there are some things that, the whole thing, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the whole thing with Mordo.
Fine if you want to talk about it. I've seen it, so I can just put a warning if you're worried about it. But yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, the whole thing with Mordo, that kind of just hadn't happened suddenly, and that didn't happen right away. That that happened over a course of time,
Mm.
and then just characters, here and there. It's just things are different, and I get that. But for the most part, I can say for sure that it's like, wow, I want more of this, and I really hope that they stay true to, I guess, the spirit of the book or the comic books,
Mm.
which I feel is something that people nowadays are like looking more towards, like jumping to like the Batman series, for example, like Christopher Nolan's adaptation of the Batman franchise. I think I understand why he did it, but at the same time, you kind of lose that comic book feel when it comes to stuff like that, because you have these characters like Bane, for example, who, oh, excuse me, did I quote the wrong creator or the director?
No, you got it. Yeah, no.
Okay.
It's no one. Yeah.
It's just second guessing myself, but Bane, for example, he was supposed to get stronger. You know what I mean? He was supposed to use Venom and whatnot to get stronger. And if you're using characters who are more down to earth, if you're trying to make it a more down to earth thing, I get it. I just wish they could have done something like, I don't know. You've watched the Batman Beyond series?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, at one point they actually visit Bane again, and he introduces Venom back out into the community, but he uses slappers. They're like just like nicotine patches. Well, that's what they look like, and they have dosages of venom in them. And I think if he would have done something like that, maybe not exactly venom, but some type of like steroid versus using like the morphine or something to make him stronger, I think that would have been a lot cooler. The mask I wasn't too keen on, but
I see.
Just you lose certain things like that from the comic book to the movie adaptation.
Mm-hmm. I would argue. I mean, I'm not upset or anything, but I would argue that I feel like he wanted to steer it away from like a drug focused thing or a steroids focused thing for the. Well, I mean that then we can get into what ended up making him a minion of Talia al Ghul, effectively, right? So then there's a whole. I feel like that other layer of drugs on top of the city already being taken over by effectively a terrorist. Would have. I feel like it could have. The Venom subplot could have just been lost in all the muddle. But I see what you mean. That I wasn't even honestly. I wasn't even thinking about it. And plus, I mean, this could have just been based on the movie they did in the 90s. I believe it was the 90s. That had a relationship. Something of a relationship. I'm not sure if this is true. Is Poison Ivy actually like at all connected to Venom, or is that just something they did in the newer movies?
You know what? I want to say that they are. I'm not too like brushed up on that, but I'm sure if we looked it up, something would come up, because even in the animated series, I believe Bane and Poison Ivy work together in a lot of their schemes, so I'm sure there's some validity to that. But like I never really saw Bane and Talia working together. That kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah, that was a nice little. I wasn't thinking about it at all when it happened.
Right,
it caught me by surprise. Yeah, it was. I think maybe it is because when you have Bane out there, there's such a strong association with Poison Ivy that it should catch you if you weren't really paying close enough attention. But not that that's a bad thing, right?
Right. No, not at all. Like I really enjoyed those movies, and I get what Christopher Nolan was doing in terms of like trying to bring everything down to earth. Because I mean, if you had a real life Batman, he wouldn't be necessarily. I mean, he kind of brought it to light where it was like you wouldn't have villains who are like super in any way. I mean, his Joker, for example, Heath Ledger did an amazing job, and he actually brought the psychotic anarchist to life, and he didn't have to do these wacky things. I mean, he did. I mean, The whole thing with the bombs when they exploded, they had cards in them.
Mm-hmm.
It's so subtle things that kind of just bring the aspect of the Joker to life, and it brings it down to a more modern, kind of level playing field. Because I mean, when you look at the Joker, well, depending on which one you look at, his whole purpose is to bring anarchy, chaos, and like laughter at the same time. He's supposed to be, well, in my perspective, like making fun of society, saying that you guys are the ones that are crazy. I'm the one who's living it up, kind of thing, And everything he does is solely for that effect. Other than his own insanity or whatever you want to call it. But just bringing those characters down to earth, it was a challenge, and I think he did a pretty good job. It just, whenever you go from a comic book to a movie adaptation, there's you lose some things in that translation. It all depends on who's directing it and what their feel and what their take is. I mean, even in, like, if you go back and you watch the original, Captain America movie, for example, you see a lot of the stuff that it's just ripped from the comic and put into the movie, and that character it's exactly like, he's closer to him now than he is, or excuse me, that character was close to the comic book versus the character that's there that we have now. And just in terms of the way he speaks, the way he acts, but that's because I think that the people who created it, they wanted to just take that and take the comic book and just bring it to life, versus people who are doing it now. They're trying to tell a new story. Which either way, they're not. Either way is not bad, but at the same time, it's like, so long as we keep the spirit of the comic book alive, will it continue to, is it honoring its past, or is it kind of hindering it? And that's kind of like one of the things that I've been like thinking about here for a while, just because of the fact that, you look at the comic books and you put them side by side to some of the movies, and you see the similarities, you see where the characters are, but at the same time, you can tell the difference between then and now, even with the newer comic books,
I feel like a lot of things change. I mean, the character is created for that point in time to represent a certain idea, and obviously, things change. Things a Captain America created now would be very different from Captain America created then. But I would argue that we have this when the movie characters first show up, they have something that they have like a leaping off point. They incorporate a bunch of different elements, I want to say, from different eras, or just what, let's say, a character stood for at different points in time, and then when they're presented in film form, right, that's what we get. But from then on, aside from, like, I want to say, events that occur, like how they adapted Civil War into like a movie rather than like a full like thing, like full, series-wide thing. You have a character that's created based on how they wanted to present him at first, and then they just kind of keep going on their own route. Like they kind of grow into the movie version has its own life, right? And that's sort of what we get as the sequels continue to come out, right? Is that sort of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think what I was just trying to get at was just when you look at both of them side by side, you can tell the difference. And you're right; you're absolutely right when it comes to each era has their own type of hero, and when things change, times change. You can tell, from the I'm here to save the day versus to the now where it's like they're coming at you and there's not a whole lot of talking going on. There's just mainly action because they're a little bit more. How would you say? Well, modern. Modern would be the term, So, I think my whole thing was just when it comes to comic books and movies, like does that change anything for you at all? Like, are there things that you would like to see differently from upcoming movies? Would you rather them go back to, their comic book roots and
Oh, okay. I think I get it. Actually, I'm happy when they can present something that's based on the material, but I don't need it to be a carbon copy of it because I don't think that would
Mhm.
be as interesting as if, like, a good example, an excellent example is Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like that movie succeeded in a lot of ways, and one is that everybody knows who Groot is now. Like, before that movie, not a single person knew who or what a Groot was. Now
Yep.
everybody knows about it, and everybody wants like a little dancing baby Groot thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
so I feel like that is sort of what I want out of it, is that you can do your homages, you can do your nods to the source material, but like just do something with it that I wouldn't expect. I like to be surprised as much as I
Yeah.
can. You know.
I can completely agree with that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm pretty pleased with everything that I've gotten so far. Or out of the Marvel movies, out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, anyway.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, sorry.
Well, I was just going to bring up the fact that you said Marvel Cinematic Universe. Absolutely right. I think my frustration with what comes out of some of this stuff is like the X-Men franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic Four. I mean, I know. Look, I'm not gonna say that they're awful or terrible movies, but some of them just, it's like, what? What were you kind of thinking when it came to them? The original Fantastic Four that I saw, the one where it actually has Chris Evans is,
Johnny Storm, yeah.
Yep. That was just a terrible movie. I'm sorry. I guess I can't bring myself to watch it, and I try to give movies a chance, and it was just terrible.
That's what I heard, and so I never really made the effort to go and see them. Like, I never saw the Fantastic Four. I didn't see that new one that just came out. Like, I was just like, I'm okay. Like, but that being said, I really like the presence of the Fantastic Four in the Marvel, in the comics. So, here's hoping the Marvel Cinematic Universe scoops them up, because Fox has to just give up on that one. Like, I'm just hoping, because there's a lot of stuff. I don't remember the specifics, but there's a lot of stuff that Fox owns because they hold on to the Fantastic Four license. Like, they have Galactus. I'd like to see Galactus in the MCU, please. I'd like the Silver Surfer in the MCU. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that let's just have it. You guys, you don't know what you're doing with it. Let's just. I think we'll be fine. They'll be fine over here. Which is,
I think my biggest upset for that is just the fact that we don't own the X-Men, or I shouldn't say we, but the X-Men aren't a part of the MCU, and that sucks so much.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. I see what you mean. Yes, I agree with you, but also I am not. I mean, most importantly, I would like Wolverine to be hanging out with the other Avenger dudes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also kind of okay that they're not tangled up in all the mutant mess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. But I just think that, like, if there was some more versatility, we could do different things, or we could actually bring a Hulk versus to life. Like, I love the cartoons. Don't get me wrong, but I also really enjoyed the actors who are portraying these characters now. And once you really put a face to something, it's really hard to get them out. Like, if somebody does a really great job, like Robert Downey Jr. does an amazing Tony Stark, a great Captain America, Iron Man. And whenever I hear that name now, that's what I think. That's who I see.
Yeah.
And it just being able to see that, just being able to have them, because could have these really great, story arcs, new things. There'd be more possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's a bummer that we're not going to get. Well, I mean, we'll see, but for now, it's a bummer that we're not going to get that.
Mm-hmm.
I personally will, and I'll be happy to be wrong, but I'll personally predict it's not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah. Another thing that sort of makes it less likely is that I feel like the X-Men movies do at least have been doing well enough on their own, in their own whole thing going on, versus the Spider-Man movies, which, as we saw, was very easy to fold it, just throw it away and fold it into the MCU. Like, that was not a problem,
Mm-hmm.
But the thing but I mean, we'll see. But I'm just saying, like, the sudden presence of mutants would be kind of strange unless they did like a freaking like cataclysm, convergence. What did they? I don't remember what they were calling I can't remember what that event was called, but that event that they were running last year, where they like just start smashing Earths together. I think it would have to be.
Yeah, dang, it's like on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. Convergence was DC's, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're gonna just have to smash an Earth into the MCU for mutants to show up and it to suddenly be okay. Like, Thanos is gonna have to do something stupid. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Just wormholes.
Yeah,
portals, whatever.
Synchronized Earths.
They're comic movies. You can do whatever you like.
That's true. That's true. You're right. We'll see what happens when he gets that Infinity Gauntlet on. I'm sure it'll be a huge mess.
Right. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Right. But back to comics.
Yeah. Oh, indeed. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent on there.
It was good. I feel like we got to talk about a lot of different things. But with regards to comics specifically, like, what would you say that you like about comics that you can get from that media that you can't get anywhere else?
I think because they're books, because they're novels, you can go into much greater detail and subtleties and develop stories over time versus any other kind of medium. You get these, like Civil War, for example, or Secret Wars is a really great example, because you can take something that's so hidden, so secret, and just delve it out in little spurts here and there. And I think just waiting and watch and reading and getting into it, like, I think that's what's so great about the book version versus anything else, because you put the time in, you're able to see all this great stuff, and you can have just one comic devoted to just this small little piece, this small little segment, like a fight between two characters, or just something developing, something going on. Because with comic books, there's always something going on. Like, I've always thought of comics as they're all taking place at a certain time, and there's hundreds of different other stories taking place at that exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all jumbled into one little thing where it's something broader. It's something, just the storytelling.
I feel like they just have a lot more freedom in their storytelling. Mm-hmm. They don't have the restrictions of, hour and a half to 2 hour long movie, right? Mm-hmm. You can get into the minuscule details of an event. You can have a fight that's not big enough to be featured on the cover of something, or you can have it featured on the cover of, of a comic, but won't be on a poster, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get really like specific and weird, or you can do really nonsense things. Like I have them, but I haven't read of the Ghost Racers. So it's like all the alternate, Ghost Riders, like a wacky races context, right?
Yeah, you can do like, for example, like the Halloween stuff. You could throw that in anywhere. You can make just like the Avengers go trick or treating or something, or like Batman's chasing some kind of crazy, candy monster or something. You can take anything you want and turn that into a comic book. And so long as the storytelling is good, like it's they're gonna be great, you know. And you can't really do that with movies because you just can't. I mean, there's just no way.
There's no time. It would be really like specific budget for it. Like right, like there's limitations that are in film. But something that is nice though is that we're getting it's an onslaught, right, of all the TV stuff.
Yeah.
All the Netflix stuff they're getting. I remember reading, I think earlier this week, that they started filming Runaways. Yeah, it's was it Runaways and Cloak and Dagger have started filming maybe in the last week or so, and that's like, nobody knows who the Runaways are. Nobody knows who Cloak and Dagger are. Like the general public, movie watching public, but it's going to happen. They're going to get it, and well, we'll see. We'll see if it gets to the same level of success as say Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Like I would love for it to be on that level.
And to be fair, I've heard of Luke Cage. I didn't know who Jessica Jones was for like the longest time.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I didn't really read the Defenders series. I've seen them mentioned, Iron Fist. I've seen them around and whatnot, but I just never heard of them. There was just because there's so many characters, and I think that's what's so great about the comic verse, because just there's a plethora of people, and like some of them are really amazing, and some of them are like, why, would you do this?
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's I think that's why.
Do you need a kung fu hero, dude? The answer is yes, because I actually love Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I was at the time, I want to say it was like 2010, 2011. I was looking for kung fu, and I was like, "There's a kung fu Marvel guy, and it's a white dude." That's all right, because it's pretty dang awesome. If you've never read The Immortal Iron Fist, it's like a 35 issue run. I want to say Matt Fraction's writing it. It's fantastic, excellent read. Plays out like a kung fu pulp, I want to say.
Huh.
Yeah. Really, I should reread that one soon. But yeah. Basically, you can do whatever you want in the comic form, even if it doesn't necessarily make it to film, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Right. A lot more flexibility.
When it comes to comic books and when you're reading them, everybody, if you do it right, you make a certain voice for a certain character. It just pops into your head, and you kind of see them in a different light. Like everybody can take a comic book, pick it up, start reading it, and some people are going to be like, "Oh, well, this person must have this kind of voice," or this person. I think like within books, you start to develop those characters in your mind because they know there's no audio, there's nothing like that. So you interpret things a certain way, and it's kind of fun to be able to like just do that. Like if it's a silly comic, you can give people like high pitched voices or whatever. I mean, that might sound a little crazy, but I do that sometimes, just to make it a little bit more amusing. Mm-hmm. But like really, like if the storytelling is good enough, you really get involved into it. You really like, even with images and absolutely no words in them at all, you can get the power, the feel from the mood, the area, everything that's going on. And you can't really do that with certain things. Some things just don't have that same power. Mm-hmm. I mean, because you get so involved and so invested into what you're reading, everything comes to life around you, and you kind of you imagine it your way. And I think for me, waiting to see what's going to come up next, the excitement, how something ends, it really, that kind of anticipation, it's just a feel that you can't get for certain things. I mean, the same thing could be said with movies or anything like that, but I think there's just a different flavor when it comes to that for comic books,
right?
Mm-hmm. And you can really see how much work and detail people really put into them, and there's just a lot of appreciation for it.
Right, and you can I think I've said this before on another one, but the benefit of a comic is that you can sit there and look at it for as long as you want.
Mm-hmm.
With a movie, you're going to have to rewind. You're going to have to, scrub a little bit to get to that. Like if you see something, if something happens with it, but it is presented to you in the comics so that you can just take it in. If it's a nice, 2-page spread with just like a ton going on in the background, you can stop and look at all of those little things and really right?
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully nothing too important's happening in the background that you're going to miss later on, oh, that guy died in that big spread. That sucks, never mind then. Right? Is that
Yeah, no, definitely. And coming to that, it's like once you have that comic book in your hand, you can reread it as many times as you want, or you can take your time with it. You can read it quickly. There's no speed to it. There's no rush.
Right. It's as fast as you want to read, or as slow as you want to read.
And you don't have to wait 4 or 5 months or get a bad copy to see that or read that book again.
That's not true. You can have a copy. You can get a copy and the pages are just torn out or something, right?
True, I guess.
Well, with the rise of digital, it's a lot easier to keep up now without having to go to the store. All right. Well, is there anything else you wanted to say about comics?
You know what? I would really like to start getting back into that.
Sure. Well, if you need recommendations,
Oh, definitely. To anybody who's never really read a comic, or to anybody who was looking to read comics, I highly suggest that you do. I mean, here's the thing.
Something. There's something for everyone, right?
Yeah, definitely. But here's my thing. It's like I kind of feel I kind of fear, and this is just my personal belief, that we're leading more towards a visual age, and we're losing that audio, or not audio, but that we're losing that reading portion of things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say that people are becoming dumb, but I kind of feel like if we don't continue to exercise, using literature, reading and visualizing this stuff, I think we're gonna kind of run out. Reading somebody else's work can kind of inspire you to do something, seeing what they do kind of influences, and just I have a fear that we're gonna lose that. We're gonna lose that storytelling. We're gonna lose something like that. So I mean, definitely, if you've never read one before, please do. If it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. I mean, you can't, but I just think that there's something different. There's a different feel to reading a comic book than there is, watching a movie or watching a TV show. Mm-hmm. They're all great. Don't get me wrong. It's all different flavors. And I think everybody should, open up their palate.
That's a really positive recommendation. And I strongly agree. I think people should read more, read plenty, read all kinds of things. Okay. So then while we're on that note, are there any specific recommendations that you'd like to make? Like anything, this can be anything. Please make lots of recommendations.
I'm not sure if everybody is a huge Doctor Who fan, but I picked one up not too long ago. It's kind of an older book, but it's from the David Tennant series for the 10th Doctor, and it's called The Forgotten.
The Forgotten. Okay.
Yeah. If you haven't read it before, or if you're into Doctor Who, I highly recommend this specific graphic novel. It's amazing. It has a lot of funny stuff in it. I read it. I've read it like 3 times.
Wow.
I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's a lot of really cool stuff that comes in here, and a lot of really great references. So.
The Forgotten, right?
Yeah, The Forgotten. It's by Tommy Lee and Pia Guerra, I believe. I'm actually looking at the cover right now, but it's even recommended by David Tennant, even though it's about the 10th Doctor. So.
Neat. Okay, that's really self-serving.
Yep.
Okay, so then, Doctor Who for sure. You said you were reading Doctor Strange. Is there anything from Doctor Strange you would really recommend?
Yes. Where did it go? I actually picked up a lot of these. The you can't go wrong with the Sorcerer Supreme. There's a lot of different ones from that specific, story arc, but you can also the Faust Gambit is one of the series that I'm trying to
Faust
find.
Gambit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've read the first 3 issues, or the first 3 parts of this.
Mhm.
The first 2 online because I found the third one when I was out at a convention, and I just it's just a really fun story arc.
Mm.
Like I don't want to give it away,
Yeah, no problem.
but it's just a really fun one.
Okay.
There's also
The Faust Gambit. Okay.
If you like, no, you know what? I think those are pretty good ones.
Okay. And that's it?
Yeah, for now.
For now.
I'm gonna try to get out there,
Sure.
find some more stuff.
Great. Yeah, and we can talk about it more probably after I read these things that you recommended.
Definitely.
And we can actually have a conversation about it.
All right.
But all right, man. Thanks for coming on and talking about comics with me.
I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to TCFCF. Tune in next week for another conversation about comics. And don't forget, the Comic Fiend is your comic friend too.